Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Welcome to It Takes Two with myself, Bilal Ali Hugh, and my co-host, as always, Sister Ruby Sowah.
Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Wa alaikum salam. I'm well, alhamdulillah. And this week we are joined by Sheikh Ahmed Haneef.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, you okay?
Yes, great.
Ready to rock and roll?
Ready to rock 'em.
Well, we're ready. Let's jump into this first scenario. A very heartfelt and emotive question. It reads, Dear It Takes Two, I desperately want more children. I have one child, a boy, who is disabled. My son is now 7 years old and my husband does not want to have more children. Medically speaking, there is nothing wrong with the both of us and my son has a good quality of life. I am keen to keep the family together and I love my husband, but I must admit this upsets me. I do a lot of community work to keep busy and try to resign myself to the idea of having no more children, but I find it hard to shake off the feeling. I do not know what to do and how to change his mind. I think he may be worried about us having another disabled child.
I would just like to say a few things on this. It did strike my heart, because a lot of the times, and this, we're always told as women that, you know, do the right thing in the family, try and push your own wants and your feelings aside, you know, for the bigger interest or the better interest of the family. And in this case, it's the husband. And I feel that, my own opinion, I feel that she has every right to want to have more children. And she stated that medically there's nothing wrong with them in terms of, you know, the statistically them having another disabled child. I think I almost feel like there's a type of injustice towards her, because if she wants to have more children, biologically that is her right to. Unless, even if it was discussed before, people have the right to change their minds. And I feel that she kind of feels hostage, that she doesn't have a right to have those feelings, and his feelings means more because he's the whatever of the house.
What about the fact that
incorrect.
Sorry to cut you mid-flow, but you know, in the sense of, I hear the sister, I feel this is what the sister's saying, but from the brother's point of view, it could be that, you know, parenting is a two-way street, and there's also the commitment from his side that, say, brother doesn't feel, you know,
no, I don't know.
wanting that commitment.
Why not?
He already has a child.
Well, I don't think they've had a discussion from the letter that they've only ever wanted to have one child, and that you know, if the child was quote unquote normal, then, you know, I don't think they'll be having this discussion. I think personally that there is some kind of resignation from the brother's side that maybe this is a bit more than we can chew. We don't know what the disability is. I mean, it could be dyslexia. That's regarded as a disability. It could be something as severe as having motor neuron disease. I don't know. She hasn't relayed that. But she stated they have a good quality of life.
But her husband fears having another disabled. That's her belief.
But I think Islamically, I will give it back to the Sheikh, that it is a woman's right to have more children, and it is a discussion because obviously it takes two. But I think she's trying to suppress her needs, because we're always told as women, well, if we're lacking in something, and I'm going to give it to the Sheikh again, anytime a woman feels like they're lacking in something, it's, well, you know, go and pray more, go and volunteer, go and, you know, see people who have less than you. Well, she's doing that, but it hasn't negated her feelings. Yeah. What do you say, Sheikh, on this?
Is it a right as well?
It is in the marital relationship. It is the right of a woman to have children, as many as she wants. Okay, and the man should not, you know, thwart her or oppose her on that particular reason. Even in terms of contraception, okay, it is the right of a woman, okay, to want contraception, to agree to it, or to disagree with it, okay? The right of a woman to have children outweighs the right of a man to have children, and outweighs also the desire of a man not to have children. And I think this is, in Islam, it is in recognition of the powerful maternal instinct of a woman. Mm-hmm. You see, so in fact, a husband is, advertently or inadvertently acting in an oppressive way towards her by denying her this right to have children.
What about the modernists who would, I say modernists, but what about those who say, the context of living in the Western world and the finance and the different factors, does it give a different context to that?
From an Islamic point of view, Allah says in the Holy Quran that we should not be afraid of having children because of the lack of
fear
means,
of poverty or something.
a fear
like
of poverty.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because children come into this world with Allah's rizq, with Allah's sustenance. Okay, in other words, you should not be afraid to have children because you can't afford it. Okay, the children come into Allah is just. Right? Allah would send children in this world through you, and He will send that risk with you. All right?
But at the same token, I don't think you should be having children if you really can't afford them, and depending, especially in the West, I'm talking about, in England, where you have a benefit system, where everybody else is, you get benefits. People who are working are helping to support your child. I'm not feeling that, because there are people who make decisions to have 1, 2 or 3 children so that they can, or don't go on holidays every year, so that they can support this child till they're 21 or wherever. And then you have people who are happily having 6, 7, 8, no job, and I'm like, no.
That's the nature. We can't have eugenics.
It goes back.
We can't have eugenics.
It goes back to intention. It goes back to intention, right? For example, the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said he encourages us to have as many children, okay? Because he says he wants to be proud that his ummah is great in number in the day of judgment. All right? So you have from the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, this encouragement to have many children. Now, what we mean by many children, okay, I think is culturally specific, right?
Yes.
In the West, we might mean by many children maximum 4, maximum 3, right? In some cultures, maximum 2. You see?
But you should be able to provide for your children.
No, you should be able to provide for your children. Allah says specifically that Allah provides for your children.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? It means, and not just for children, also in marriage as well, right?
Because some people might think when it means Allah provides me, it's a benefit system.
Because Allah, a razik, He's a razik, right? Say for example, you have a plant that's growing, right? The plant, Allah sends it sunlight, He sends its rain, okay? He sends all the things that are necessary for it to grow, right? What we are saying, what Allah is saying, is the same thing with respect to children. Whatever child comes into this world, right? Allah sends all of the means for that child to grow.
Cultivate it.
Okay? Now, it is not just about rizq. It's not just about physical sustenance, right?
Okay.
It is also for psychological sustenance, right? So sometimes, for example, they say a child might lack something, right? But that lacking of something is necessary for its development, right? Psychological development, for example, okay? Sometimes a child is brought into this world and it's a test for you, okay? That child is, on one level, Allah is sustaining that child through you, right? And on another level, that child is responsible for you growing beyond yourself. For example, in terms of responsibility, in terms of sacrifice and so on, which brings out that higher level of you. All right? So, I mean, what's important, I think, here is your niyyah. Okay, there are some people, for example, who have lots of children because they want to make much money on the benefits, for example. All right?
So you're talking about.
You see, look,
Yes.
this is
your bugbear.
This brings something, a cloud upon that. Okay? This sort of almost neutralizes or compromises Allah's mercy on that. It's like halal money and non-halal money. right? I mean, if I work halal and I make $1 million, right, that $1 million is going to bring benefit to me. But if I go play the lottery and I make $1 million, right, that $1 million is going to be a curse for me. I buy a car with that, I might get crashed and get paralyzed from the neck down, for example. You see what I mean? All right? It's two different things, okay?
I think, just going back to this letter, I think a lot of the time people have so much negativity to say about the West, but we don't look at the benefits. One of the benefits of living in England is that we have a really good healthcare service, and we have benefits, and we have organisations that help you have respite if your parents with a disabled child. There are so many groups and mechanisms you have here that other countries don't have.
Indeed.
Support in schools for the child and stuff. So it's a blessing almost that this sister is, did she mention where she was? In the West, I'm saying in the West, because there's more knowledge, there's more input into, disability now, alhamdulillah, is no longer frowned upon. You have the Paralympics
coming up, right?
Subhanallah. You have so many people that are vocal. You want to talk about celebrities or newspapers who are showing their stories that I had a brother or I have a sister who's this, that and the other.
Being destigmatized, right?
It's not that, you need to hide or be ashamed of it. And there's no reason that, I personally know of a sheikh in Syria actually, whose 2 children were severely mentally handicapped. And he went on to have 6 more children. And he didn't worry about, he just trusted in Allah that everything would be okay and they had a good quality of life. But I feel that this poor sister's almost being held hostage because of something that happened. Almost, we're going back to the time where there's guilt, there's responsibility, there might be some shame involved. And I actually think people need to speak to this brother. In an encouraging way or a chastising way? Because does he need some empathy? Because it might be like although he's doing it injustice by withholding, having another child from his wife, you could say that maybe his anxiety might be understandable, if not correct, but understandable.
I wouldn't say in a chastising way, right? I think more in a way for him to realize what he's doing.
That the implication,
for example, that very fact, that on an Islamically legal and moral point of view, okay, that the emphasis is on the right of the woman to have more children if she so desires, more than anything else, more than the husband thinking about whether it's affordable or not, for example. Okay, the emphasis is on that, for him to recognize this. Now, if he might personally feel, not inclined to having more than 2 or more than 3 or something, right? It becomes important for his wife to be on board with that, okay? For his wife to agree upon that, okay? If she does not agree upon that, then he has to fulfill that right on her.
So it almost sounds like the other way around to this situation, that she's entitled to have a child and he needs to convince her not to have one, as opposed to her winning him over because it's her right. She's starting from the place of it's her right.
It's her right, and if he doesn't want, he feels not inclined to fulfilling that right, okay? It is his right to try to convince her to show why and so forth and so on.
That may have happened.
The veto is on her side.
That may have happened, but she still may not be happy with that decision. I mean, we don't know how old the husband is. He might not want to be, I don't know, he could be 60 years old. He doesn't necessarily want to have a toddler at this age, or he might be just, not to give the brother a hard time, he might be thinking, well, when we're not here, or if I'm not here or you're not here, who's going to look after the child with this disability? Are other family members going to step up? Are they going to see it as a burden? So he might be just seeing it from a completely different perspective, as in, we've been given this responsibility, I've got to see it through, because this child is going to be 21, 22, and we might not be here. But as I'm going back to what I said, in the West there are mechanisms, there are organisations set up. You're not the only one who's had a disabled child, and we don't know what the disability is, but there is so much help and support out there. I mean, we see disabled children who are grown adults, severely disabled, you know, from a completely different generation. Look at thalidomide, you know, in the 60s, and they're still, the children are still alive, alhamdulillah, doing well. You know, sometimes you've got to have a bit of faith and, you know, keep living. Just because something has happened to you doesn't mean it's going to reoccur. And if it does, and I'm sure, however hard it is, Allah will give you the mechanisms. But talk to other people who have been in that situation, who have a disabled child. Look around. How do they cope? Sometimes there's so many forums you can go on, you know, that I'm sure there are plenty of parents who have had to make heartbreaking decisions of whether...
This is a family in the UK. We know this is a family in the UK, and every borough has an agenda, has a protocol for disabled children. Just Googling on the web, going on forums, how do I deal with this? I find this really hard. Do you stop living? Do you stop, you know? I just think that this can be taught with anything. Most things you can talk them out, but I don't want the sister to walk around with a grudge, and it's very hard, especially for women. When you have a grudge, it's a disease in your heart, and you know, the salad might be the wrong dressing, and then suddenly you have a massive argument about something else. So I think they need to discuss.
I think you're right. Maybe it might be a problem in communication here, you know, because people decide not to have children for different reasons. Right. For example, if you know a person might be they might see the relationship as problematic if they don't like the relationship. All right, they might not want to have children or more children in that relationship. You know what I mean? It's possible. I'm not saying this is the case with them, but it's possible, for example, that he might not be too crazy about his wife in the beginning. You know, he might have problems with her in terms of in his own mind, criticisms. Right, this disabled child might be confirmation in his own mind that this relationship is not a good one. You know what I'm saying? And so it might have led to him to sort of like be even more adamant that, you know, he shouldn't have kids. You know, a whole lot of things could be in there. Right? In other words, they need to communicate. Right? She needs to know from him why he doesn't want to have any
what's going
kids,
on,
because she's speculating. Right? As to why he doesn't. You know, that means that they didn't speak about it.
She feels it's because of the child. It may not be.
So don't have a communication thing going on.
Clarity.
And I think as women, just for the brothers to know, not all women, but just because you may have discussed something once, twice, or 3 times, and you may have come to an agreement that, for whatever reason, you've decided not to have children, don't just think you've discussed it, that discussion doesn't need to be revisited again. Because just because I said I'm okay doesn't necessarily mean I'm okay. It's like, okay, discussion done, we've reached a conclusion. But in 6 months' time, just say, look, I know that was a decision that was hard for you.
People have the right to change.
No, but maybe just keep talking about it and going over why you came to that decision together. And maybe, you know, I'm not saying replace one with another because it's very hard to replace, but do something to show that, okay, we wanted to have more children. I said I don't think it's a good idea, but because of the sacrifices we've made or you've made, let's do this. Or let me work harder that, you know, maybe we'll go on a holiday. Maybe we'll go on a ziyarat together. Because you've made a sacrifice that's important to you. So let me work a little bit harder to try and acknowledge what you have given. And that's what a lot of women want. We want acknowledgement. Just something small.
I hope the brothers are listening. The sisters
I hope they are too.
We
do. And just because you've discussed it once or twice doesn't make that feeling go away. I mean, there's children all over the place. You know, you can think, oh, I wish that was me, or I'm sure the sister's a brilliant sister and is great with children and everybody else's kids and stuff, and it, you know, your heart feels what it feels. So I think the brother should keep revisiting, even if it's once a year. We made that decision, Allahu Alam, but because of that, you know, I'm going to do my best to try and make this family the best it can be and provide experiences and outlets and stuff, because that was a hard decision. Acknowledge that was a hard decision that she has agreed to.
And there is a hadith that says the best of you are the ones that are best to your wife, should I say. You know, that's a really heavyweight, you know, saying that the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. Sheikh, I wanted to go back to something philosophical. It's slightly drifted away from the question directly, but you know, you speak about the risk is provided for the child, and I'm trying to understand it in the context of poverty, and you know, obviously there's parts of the world where there's people starving, children starving and stuff like that. How do you reconcile that with that teaching?
think about rizq, Allah's bounties, like rain. Okay? It falls on everybody. It falls in every place. Imagine a rainfall all over the earth. But there's some people who've got umbrellas up. They put up the umbrella. There's some people who take recourse to a building so you don't get wet. When we're talking about you should get wet. We're talking because this is bounty. So the risk is coming. All right? But human intervention okay, prevents that.
So Allah sent it into the world, but social engineering or cultural, political factors.
Even our own attitudes.
Okay.
Right? You know, for example, what prevents our du'as from being answered? Our sins. Our sins. The du'a is answered. Allah is sending the answer. But your sins act as a barrier to that. You see? It's like in the world, like us in the world. Huh? For example, you want to improve yourself on the job. You want a promotion on the job. All right? And you have a boss who is willing to give you a promotion. Huh? But your job performance, which is within your capacity, all right, is not up to par. Because you might have certain internal deficiencies, right? Whereby your job doesn't get up to par. You have to work upon those deficiencies in order to take advantage of that boss's willingness to promote you.
But then you could have a situation where you've done all those things and you still don't get it. So I think it's a concept that life is not fair as we see it. Doesn't mean it's not there, the parameters are not there. You could have...
But Allah is fair.
From an Islamic point of view, you only have one other scenario where, for example, you cannot get this or you don't get this. Okay? It is because of the fact that it might not be for you. Exactly. It might be something that is bad for you. Okay? The others is another one. Another one is that you're not prepared for it. Right? You would not have done the things that are necessary for you to be prepared for it. For example, okay, deep down inside you're a miser. Okay? But you want Allah to increase your wealth. All right? If He increases your wealth, it increases your miserliness. Your miserliness increases, you go to hell. All right?
To the right? Withholding is a blessing.
Yes, it's a blessing for you to overcome your miserliness in order for you to be able to go to heaven through getting this wealth, for example.
Well, what about the concept of it's saved for you somewhere else? So something else will be given to you if that one isn't.
That is true, right? That is true, and that is true especially in a world, okay, where human actions and behaviors prevent people from achieving their potential or getting their right. You know, on this level, Allah is just and you will get it in the next world. It is true, right? But what is also very important, it is that it is our responsibility to change that external environment, that social environment, as much as we can towards justice. In other words, it makes every Muslim a social reformer.
I think that, as we've said on other shows, I think before people get married or even during marriage, there should be refresher courses on different scenarios that could happen in life. If you have a disabled child, if somebody dies, what do you do? If your husband decides to take on another wife, what if your daughter suddenly decides or son decides to leave Islam? So, you know, people have life skills in school. They have classes where they give you life skills. If you're in this situation, what to look out for. But, you know, we've got such a important thing in our hands as a Muslim community. We don't even prepare people. We don't even have these discussions. I don't think
the psychological infrastructure is there. It is in relation to the religion, but maybe the way that how we are socializing ourselves and educating ourselves is not there at this moment. But it's a good idea.
Time. I mean, we still got in our community issues and taboos about disabled people and how we treat people who are disabled and should they get married or not. We're in 2016. We're talking about these type of issues. We can't even talk about, we're talking about issues that should have been long solved in our community. We've got people who are smart, intelligent, who have lived. We can't come together and find solutions. You know, there needs to be, I think There needs to be constant like marriage camps. I've seen this in Christian and in Jewish communities where there's like a revival where couples go and, you know, issues where they've had with each
like
other.
a residential, you know, workshop.
A weekend workshop to prepare you for these issues. And a lot of the time, the parents and human beings, life doesn't prepare you for this. But I'd like to know, well, let me go to such and such where they know how to address this issue, you know. Even for the brother, I don't even know where he would go to express his feelings about, I actually don't want to have any more children. For whatever reason, I don't feel comfortable with it. Where would he go to? Because nobody wants to hear it's the woman's right. I'm sure he knows that if he's practicing his religion, but it's not something for his
Sometimes
lifestyle.
it's not as simple as that. Knowing what is the ruling and being able to adjust is a challenge. You know, Sheikh, what do we say Islamically? What do the teachers say about the disabled children with respect to parents and things of that nature?
Well, the disabled child is an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to grow spiritually and in our character, right? By Allah giving us an issue to deal with.
As a parent, and I'm sure I'm relating to people who have had this, when you have a child and in this situation, you have one child, and it is not quote unquote normal, there's a grief that you carry with you. There's a grief that you will never understand, that your child will not be able to do things that other people take for granted. And you do carry that with you, and you do feel like, why me? Sometimes it feels like life is so hard in itself. All I needed to do was have a healthy child, and I couldn't even do that. And you feel guilt for the child, that there must be something that I did that I couldn't give you this. So it's hard. We need to support each other. And you know, a lot of these people, parents that I see with children with disabilities, they're always smiling. And I'm like, but I can tell it must be hard for you. Has anyone asked how you're doing?
So as a community, we need
Burdens
to
are hard.
We need to bear that in
There's
mind.
no such thing as a non-hard burden. When a burden ceases to be hard, it's no longer a burden, right? Tests are hard. You know, when a test ceases to be difficult, it's no longer a test. You know, when you have I read about Usain Bolt, right? Somebody was telling me about Usain Bolt. You know, that when he is practicing, when he's training, right? He's training until he vomits. Okay, and this is what makes him a champion. Okay, you know, but Michael Jordan, you know, when practice session is finished, he's still practicing. You see, all right. This is what brings out the metal out of you. You know, so it is a suffering. You can't. When I say that, for example, you know, when Allah puts a burden upon somebody, you know, because you can bear that burden.
It's not glamorous.
You know what I mean? It's not glamorous, right? You suffer, right? You must feel it, right? The day you stop suffering, right, is the day you no longer have a burden. It's the day you failed. You see what I'm saying, right? So I mean, it is like that. You see? I mean, you know, how do we see champions? How do we see people who are the best in society? All right, you know, those people who are the best in society, they either are suffering from something external, okay, or they impose a suffering of progress upon themselves.
That is a good note to finish on, because we've run out of time. But thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
And Sheikh, as always, thank you. And thank you all for staying with us for the duration of this very, very heartfelt episode of It Takes Two. Hope to see you next time. And remember to stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
If you have any questions or queries that you would like to send to It Takes Two, please email us at ittakes2@safirtv.com.